Edgar here, doing another review. This one's, I think, pretty interesting one. This is going to be a review of a Browning Hi Power. Now, this particular high power is called the FEG. It's the Hungarian made, so people refer to it as a clone. It's not considered a licensed copy. Unlike the Belgian and even the Argentine versions are in fact licensed copies. The Hungarian and some of the others, including an Israeli version of the Browning, are not considered licensed. They're called a clone. That being said, it really is a pretty good quality handgun. It's a 9mm, of course. This is one of the early designs of automatic handguns or self-feeding handguns. This is the Browning that Mr. Browning himself designed, actually for the French. Seems a little odd to say that, but he designed it for the French military, and it got produced in enormous numbers and has been used by a lot of different military organizations, including the British. It's proven itself as a very durable weapon, very reliable. It's called a high power, interestingly enough, because it's one of the first to actually put out what was considered a high-capacity magazine. The magazine is a 13-round magazine, and it is a double-stack version, which was a pretty early innovation for back then. We're talking about a handgun that was designed back in 1935. So that is why it's called a high power. It's a 13-round handgun. It has a magazine safety, which leads to one of the aspects about it that's somewhat less desirable, and I'm going to go into that. I will rack it, show you that, yes, it is empty. There's nothing in there. Show you on the safety standpoint. So, and now you'll see there is a magazine safety. It will not fire with the magazine out. Okay, put the magazine in and let her snap forward. Now, I know a lot of you folks probably know that I have small hands, and I don't tend to like double stack handguns. I tend to find that they're a little uncomfortable for me. Double stacks are just a little bit on the thick side. I've got to say on this one though that this double stack is actually pretty comfortable. It holds pretty well for a guy that has little hands. I seem to get a good grip with that with my right hand. I seem to really be able to hold this thing well. Now this, of course, is single action only. It's not a double action handgun. And one of the downsides is associated with the magazine safety. It's the grittiness of the trigger. And I can show you what that comes from. Let's pop the magazine out. The way you do a takedown on one of these is extremely simple, by the way. Pull that back. There are two notches here. There's the safety notch, which is just about as simple a safety as you can get. And then there's the breakdown notch here. You bring it back all the way back and get the safety lever to click into that. Then we're going to take the locking lever out. You just push on that portion of it. She pulls out. It's really straightforward, really easy to get her out. Then you let her go very smoothly now. Let her go forward, and you kind of hold on to it so it doesn't spring out. You'll see that the guide rod there slips out easily, and then you just take the barrel out. Now, the reason why it's got the gritty trigger, it's going to be a little hard to see in this light, but in fact, the way the trigger safety works is you're going to see the sear in here, this portion of the trigger. When it pushes up, it actually presses against the side of the magazine. And there is a little wear spot that you'll actually be able to see on the magazine that shows where it presses to it. That gives it that gritty feel. Well, that's part of the magazine safety. Now, some folks, what they'll do is they'll polish that little sear portion up there a bit, and maybe even polish the magazine a tad. If you polish that up and get it smooth, it helps for the gritty feel to the trigger. And others actually remove the magazine safety mechanism. Now that has some dangers to it. I've read several folks having done that and then discovered they had to go in and do some serious repairs on the trigger overall. Personally, I'd just leave it as it is. It's not terribly noticeable. You could probably dress that piece up just a little bit to smooth it out a little more. But just live with it, I think. It's a reliable piece regardless of that. All right, let's put her back together. Put that in. Take the spring, the guide rod, push it. Now you got to make sure that you get this circle portion facing down so it'll fit into the slot that's on there on the barrel. It'll actually sort of go in backwards, and that's decidedly ungood if you set it in backwards. Okay, just slide her back on. She just goes in pretty easily, really. Bring her over here and lock her the way she was before. The second notch with the safety lever. Pop in the slide lock in. She should just snap in. Make sure she's down, and you just let her go forward. Now you notice it doesn't work without the magazine, and she snaps. Now on the trigger again, I'm going to say, yeah, it's got that little bit of grittiness to it in the travel. You can hear the little bit of a, oh, well, you may not be able to hear that, but it's got just that little bit of grit pressing against the magazine. But once you get to the end of that loose travel there and you get to the engagement for the trigger, it's a crisp trigger. It's not a real easy pull. This is not going to be like a CZ82 smoothness. It's got a snap to it. And I'd say it was a moderate pull to it. It's not a real light trigger. But I will say this about the Hi Power. It is phenomenal as far as how it feels in your hand. Even with that larger magazine for me, and again I have the small hands, this thing has an incredibly good feel to it. The ergonomics of it, just the balance of the weight, it's like it's the perfect weight, it's the perfect balance. Yeah, the sights are strictly utilitarian. There's nothing to brag about on those. There's military sights, but after all, it is a military handgun. All in all, I think that if you can find one at a reasonable price, and of course reasonable is pretty subjective anymore these days, and we're talking about now, July of 2012, these things can go into the 300s even in good condition, NRA good condition. The demand is going up a lot for serviceable, I would say sort of bargain firearms now. But if you can get one that's in good shape, I think it's well worth it. I'm going to be keeping mine. Anyway, this is Edgar. Let me know what you think.